Jeremiah, why we did not order? People.
Hey, I'm Matt Mulholland. That's Dmitry Lipinskiy. I'm in his studio. This is Roofing Inside Studio, and this is a Listen to This Bull Show, the show where you get to ask us questions live, and we'll answer it no matter what they are. If you want to know what lower back tattoo Dmitry has, he will tell you as long as you ask it, but you have to actually post that question in there. So if you don't post the question, you get nothing. Nothing. So, hi, Dmitry.
Hello.
Thanks for letting me use your studio.
Absolutely. Looks like we already have a few people. I'm going to be in charge of comments today in my studio. This guy says he cannot multitask. I can multitask. It's a Russian thing. So Conrad says, woohoo, I've been waiting for this one. And Drake Hernandez says, stoked.
Well,
comment away, guys.
I am too. So today our topic is something that we have discovered is going to be difficult for us. I posted that the topic should be contractors working with public adjusters, but I don't think Dmitry has much experience dealing with public adjusters.
It's not about that. It's public adjusting sucks, so, and you don't really need it for your success.
We're just a bunch of shills, so I mean it makes sense. So.
I actually just walked Matt to my roofing company. It's actually in the same building, and introduced him to my team, to my supplementer, and they actually have a great conversation about our experience with the public adjusters. So we're in Minnesota, so we're a matching state. I have a person who worked for my roofing business over the last 4 or 5 years now, who've been doing all the claims, and he's very knowledgeable. I think we have like 1, maybe 2 appraisals over the years. So overall, the way I've done business is retail operation, and we always treated insurance claims as just a bonus. You know, homeowner calls us, I need a new roof, my roof leaks, we come out, hey, you have potential claim. And that's easy business. Like,
sure,
homeowner loves you. Insurance company, usually if we call them, they're not going to deny it because it's obvious. It's not 50-50 chance. I mean, if we start the claim, it's usually, you know, something legit. And we have a great guy working those claims, and then the rest is history. But we've been on, you know, dealing with the public adjusters. Of course, I've been in the industry for years, so I've been involved in a lot of claims. I have a lot of guys in Chicago, a lot of public adjuster friends as well. But in my business, because I have an employee who deals with it, you know, on the next level, I did not have to use public adjusters as much as others.
So Dmitry is being very respectful, but I just spent the last 5 minutes hearing his ex-employees talk some shit about public adjusters. So the reality is they're not exactly the demographic for contractors that I would normally go talk to try to earn their business. But that might have a lot to do with the state that they're in more than anything else. There are a few people here that actually want to know if you have a tramp stamp.
What is tramp stamp? I don't know what
the lower back tattoo, you know, right there.
What?
You see it when bent over. That's why it's a tramp stamp.
No, I don't have.
You don't have a tramp stamp?
No, I don't.
I thought you did.
Is it an internal joke? Tramp stamp?
We are laughing at you.
What?
Yeah.
Don't take advantage of my English. That's just rude.
You really don't know what it wasn't about the English thing. It was just being silly.
No,
really.
All right. So Congress says, looks like I'll be needing a PA down here in Memphis on a really tough one. Ask a question.
Memphis, Tennessee. Tennessee is an interesting state. They are a matching state. They do have some decent laws in their favor, but the carriers still don't have the fee shift issue as well as they should. So there's a little bit of leverage in that state, but not a ton, and that makes claims a little bit difficult. So if you have a problem, especially with larger claims, I think public adjusters are a good idea. So what kind of issues are you having? maybe Dmitry and I can take a stab at it from our own personal experiences. While he's typing out his answer to that. So what I gathered from your team or your X-team, X-team?
Yeah, X-team.
It sounds like a superhero team in a way.
What?
X-team.
X-team.
Like X-Men? Never mind.
X-Men.
I'm too nerdy for you. All right, so it sounds like your team, they're used to dealing with supplements, but in certain states there is some problems with that. So if a supplement company isn't hired directly by the policyholder, and they're only hired by the contractor, so they're acting to the benefit of the contractor. And as long as the contractor isn't overstepping their bounds, then a supplement company can be useful. But there are states where that would be considered the practice of public adjusting. But if it's working out in the state that you're in and that's working and no one's getting in trouble for it, I honestly don't know the laws in Minnesota that well. So, plus I'm not an attorney. Certainty Independence, Farm Bureau of Tennessee is doing all they can to avoid paying. Independence, that's a discontinued shingle.
Mm-hmm.
So did they have a exclusion for discontinued materials, things that are obsolete? Because here's the thing, if it's discontinued, then the policy still owes to replace the damaged property with materials of like kind of quality. Depending on the language of the policy, it probably says like kind of quality or something similar to that, maybe similar construction or something. Even if they say they don't owe for matching, matching is really designed to be an issue of coloration that changes over time because of oxidation and things like that. If the material kind, which for a Certainty Independence is fairly unique, it's got that extra strip on top of the 3-tab, and the 3-tab is already a heavyweight. It's a 50-year. You know,
not 3-tab will not be 50-year, but are you talking about street bars?
Independence
Independence. I almost want to say it was organic Independence.
There was an organic. I don't know if the
I don't think it was 50 years.
All right. Well, it was definitely more than a 30-year. Let's say 40.
I think it was 40.
We'll cut it in half.
It was 40.
It's officially a 40-year, even if it never really was. It is now. So if they have that 40 years, so that's the quality, or at least you could use that information as setting it as the quality. If there isn't a shingle with the same type of profile, I don't even know what you'd call that. What does Certainty call that shingle? I know with Atlas and the Atlas Chalet, they called it a shingle sometimes, or actually that was a different shingle, but they use different terminology. If they don't actually call it a 3-tab, they call it something else, faux laminate, whatever it might be. That's the kind, and the manufacturer might actually name what kind it is. Oh, read these out to me, Dmitry.
There's significant mechanical damage from a fallen chimney, but there is indisputable wind damage on the roof. See, Russian have to read to American.
You know,
You're wearing glasses, man.
I am. So
I mean, let me read it one more time for you. There is significant mechanical damage from a fallen chimney, but there is an indisputable wind damage on the roof.
Let me ask you a question real quick.
Sure.
What do you think mechanical damage is?
Mechanical damage. Anything that's not acts of God. I don't know. Anything that's created by human.
Okay.
Mechanical, like
I think it's what's odd about that particular term is there's a lot of engineers that use the term mechanical damage to try to not say that it's hail or wind. They'll say, well, it's mechanical damage. Sometimes they'll try to insinuate that that is vandalism without saying vandalism because they don't want the liability of saying that someone intended to cause damage. But there really isn't a specified definition of that that's really accepted in the industry. Many engineers use
in this case, mechanical damage from the fallen chimney.
For this case, for sure. But mechanical damage in general is an interesting concept. There isn't a real definition. So I always like to ask, especially if an engineer uses that, what they mean by mechanical damage. So mechanical damage from a fallen chimney. I wonder what caused the chimney to fall. Was it the wind?
It's a good question. Congress says that they're focused on the mechanical and trying to ignore the wind. But if you think about fall of the chimney, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. If you own a house and you have a chimney, and let's say it's 100-year-old chimney, but I'm your insurance company, and maybe I did not see or inspect the chimney, but I'm giving you policies. Hey, I'm going to insure your house, and then a year later, your old chimney falls down. It could be anything. It could be, settled like after the rain, wind, whatever. But it falls down. Maybe tree, whatever the reason is. I insured you, didn't I? I mean, should I? I mean, wind or I mean, unless would be mechanical, what someone pushed against it. I mean,
That could be. It depends on how they apply mechanical.
soccer ball hit it.
I've always.
I mean, if I hit it in the chimney, it will fall down.
That's a sports incident. That has nothing to do with property damage.
Mechanical damage.
So, if you have a policy just because the chimney got old, if the reason that it falls, and that's what matters is why. What is the causation? Because even if you have a policy that covers you, even based on the age, and they decided to insure you, there's still going to be exclusions in that policy that may apply. So as long as there's
like maintenance,
if it's a lack of maintenance that is determined to be the cause of loss, but there's no other outside force, if wind acted upon this thing, then there's at least one causation that should be covered, the peril of wind. But if it's also just old as hell, old as fuck, wear and tear, and both of those are the real causes of loss. It's old as fuck and wind hits it, then you have multiple causations, concurrent causation. One of these, depending on the state that you're in, might be applied over another, depending on which one is determined to be the primary cause of loss, or they might apply it as a proximate cause. So I like to do a but-for argument. If not but for the age of the chimney, would the wind at that speed have knocked it down? And if it would have been knocked down regardless of the age, then wind is your primary undisputable cause of loss. And depending on what state you're in, I think for Tennessee, you have concurrent causation. So if wind is covered, depending on the policy, and it's going to be policy specific, but if wind is covered in that policy and wind is not, or wear and tear isn't under a concurrent causation exclusionary section, usually 2 exclusionary sections. You can find a video with red and blue darts on my website about that. If it isn't under the anti-concurrent causation section, then it would be applied as wind either way. All right, where is he at? I have been ignoring every other comment.
I feel like people have been people have been roasting me. Both Conrad and Alex saying that it's 50 years. I have to get back to it. I have to do some research.
As a public adjuster, standing next to an ex-roofer, I feel like you should have known.
They used to have 50-year organic, but see, like 50-year warranty was introduced in 2013 or 12. That was the first one, I think.
Really?
Yeah, 2012.
You're not talking about the lifetime warranty.
Like I have to get back to it. I was pretty sure that was 50-year lifetime. That's what they start calling lifetime. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'll get back to you on that. I'm not prepared to discuss that right now. I actually have a question for myself here. Oh no,
is that you?
Hold on. Hold on. Okay. So Anthony Hines asking, you said you had an in-house person. Are they licensed as a public adjuster, or do you have one on staff? We're in Minnesota, Minneapolis. We are not allowed to do both, like in Chicago or some other states, Georgia until recent. So no, we actually have a full-time supplementer, we call them. So 5 years ago, we hired someone just to do Xactimate, negotiate with insurance companies. Good-looking guy. The best employee we have for the last 5 years. That one person, one employee of the year every year. He's literally half the business. But no, before we hired him, we did not do insurance claims, and then we pretty much were taking it at face value. And then 5 years ago, I think it was 5 years, he came in and he started working on every file and increasing 30-40% every claim. But because we were not door knocking or chasing claims, it was just, so he's a supplementer, but we actually used it to supplement our income in a sense. So like we did not, I mean, he's done a lot of jobs for us where it started with a repair and went to full replacement. I mean, he's done the work of PAs for us in a sense, but he is not a licensed PA. He can be a good one if he decided to change his profession, but no.
It probably wasn't going into how the policy is supposed to be applied or something like that, and really just talking about how the work is supposed to be done as a contractor. And that's really the major difference between a supplement company and a public adjuster. Is a supplement company really still can't talk about policy and how it's supposed to be applied. So if they're acting inappropriately according to the policy, you're going to need a public adjuster. If they're just talking about what work has to be performed, a supplement company can act as the contractor, as part of the contractor, to say, this is what actually has to be performed and this is what we're charging for. And so they're really just discussing their bid. And that's what a supplement company really would do.
Javier asking, hey guys, which is the best way to know if a shingle is disco or not? Any shingle or material analysis companies you recommend?
So there's the obvious ITEL that's out there, though, to be honest, I'm not a huge fan. I'll get into that in a second because that's an interesting conversation. But TJ Ware was doing something called Name That Shingle. I don't know if it's off the ground yet, but that forum is pretty good. If you have questions, you can go onto that Name That Shingle group and post dimensions, and they'll give you a good idea. If you happen to find out that it's discontinued and then you want to send it to, if Name That Shingle is available yet, or anybody that can make that determination, ITEL or what have you, I recommend before you send it into anybody, measure the shingle and take photos of the one that you're actually sending in. I have had multiple occasions where ITEL has mismeasured the shingle that I sent them by 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, and that made a huge difference on whether or not that material was still available or had any like kind of quality still available. And since they own Discontinued Materials Inc., if it is a discontinued material and they know it, instead of saying this product is discontinued, they'll say, we've been able to source this product and here it is at this warehouse and we've gone ahead and reserved a certain amount of them for you and you can purchase them. But as many of you already know, they don't send the shingles in the original packaging. And it is required by code to have the original approved testing documentation on the packaging. And if those materials were never intended to be sold individually, not for individual sale or individually pieced or per each, whatever it might be, if it was never intended to be sold that way, then they can't actually sell it that way in a retail establishment. And that's what they're acting as. Plus, they say that all their materials are new. They're not new. They're pre-owned. Right on the front page of their website, they say, we will buy discontinued materials from you. If you have any, please contact us if you have something. We really want to buy that stuff from you because they're buying it from consumers. So if they're buying it from consumers and not from a warehouse, then it's pre-owned. And if it's pre-owned, it can't be considered new, and they're violating some fair trade practice laws. And I'm not a lawyer. That was all. Here's my disclaimer. That was an opinion.
You say that a lot. I'm not a lawyer. Keep saying that. So Joshua is educating us. Looks like copy and paste from Google somewhere. Mechanical damage is any damage that is a result of mechanical energy. Mechanical energy is the sum of kinetic and energy and potential energy. Wind and hail are both kinetic forces.
It was definitely a Google thing. Although I happen to know Josh, and I wouldn't put it past him to actually say that as a person.
Anthony Hines says, car insurance is based on the type of car, mileage, age. If they insure your roof without inspection, are they accepting liability of the wear and tear that was present? Is there a maintenance requirement for roof systems and policies? And this is interesting conversation because in the car industry, you actually can take, old parts. So if you drive 96 Honda and it got in an accident, can you replace it with the parts from another 96 Honda, or it has to be brand new? If you have 10-year-old roof, can you replace it with the parts from 10-year-old roof, or clay for that matter, or slate, or does it have to be brand new?
All right, so
What would
Several
you?
things there. The auto policies are generally ACV policies, and they apply ACV differently to auto. They'll actually pay fair market value. And so if there is a part that is the same age that is worth that, they're basically just paying how much that part would cost just prior to the loss. They would do the same thing for roofs for ACV value, only they wouldn't apply it as a fair market value kind of a situation. It might be a replacement cost minus depreciation or age or something along those lines. But if they have a replacement cost policy, then they owe to replace with new materials. Replacement cost means to go from old to brand new, brand spanking new, shiny. If the policy has exclusions for certain perils and the cause of loss is one of those excluded perils, then there isn't going to be coverage, even if they didn't do an inspection. Wear and tear is, I haven't seen a policy that doesn't exclude wear and tear. Now, they also don't define wear and tear. And I've seen one policy and only one that gives a tiny hint at what wear and tear actually means for them. And it wasn't in the policy, it was in the policy notices at the end of it, a letter that they send to the homeowner to say, this is how we apply our policy. And they said that, remember, wear and tear isn't covered in your policy. So if your roof is so old that it needs to be completely replaced prior to the damage, then it wouldn't be covered. And so they say wear and tear means that it's already to the point that it needs to be replaced completely. Now, it's not in the policy, and they've actually argued with me over that very language, and they wouldn't let me use that against them, even though it was in their own letterheads. But that's a whole nother story.
All right. So Conrad says that there's a group on Facebook called Name That Shingle. Great resource. That's what we were talking about. Recently, Bart is saying, whoop, whoop, keep up the good work. So to you, my friend. Do you know this website? I've never heard of it. ntsid.com by David Kim. I don't know if it's...
I don't know what that is. Check it out later.
Yep.
We don't want to accidentally pull up something inappropriate.
Bad idea. Didn't know that about the packaging. Awesome, says the Treving.
Cool.
Fire.
Fire. Are you talking about me or him?
It's all you, man. It's all you. 2015 IRC R904. Joshua trying to convince us that it was not cut and paste. If I
sure it was.
Sure. I mean, anyway,
that's bullshit.
Yeah, that's what we do at this show, right? Cut the bullshit. I can tell it was copy and paste. They have a certain time to inspect and include coverage within limits, right?
Yeah. So when you get a policy, they have a certain amount of time to go out and take a look to establish what pre-existing conditions there are. Now, wear and tear, if that's still the cause of loss, it still probably not be covered. But they basically, the amount of time they have to go out to take a look to get an underwriting look is just to verify that the premium that they're charging you is enough to cover the loss, or they still have the right to take back the coverage and say that we're not actually going to give you a policy. And that's really what they're doing. Now, they're establishing baselines with their photos. You can request copies of those photos if they're trying to say that that damage was there prior, and they might give it to you. But you can use a lot of that stuff to your advantage.
I want to look something up.
You got another one?
Ooh. A lot of comments today.
Yeah, a lot of comments. Messages are not working. Are we not discussing the bullshit?
What? Look at that shirt.
I am a shill. Terminus Construction Group got this to me late last night. They made sure to bring it directly to my doorstep so that I could have it here today. And thank you very much, all the wonderful people at Terminus. You guys are awesome. This is funny as hell. For those of you that have no idea, the reason I'm even on this show right now is because of some bullshit that went on. And somebody called me out and called me a shill, and they spelled it SCHILL, and none of us really actually know what that actually is.
It's you.
It's me. I'm a shill. I can apply that however I want.
Shill for the profit. That's your profit-driven shill.
I actually am profit-driven. That's true.
So for those of you who don't know, so I own a group, private group, Roofing Insights private group on the Facebook. One of the cleanest group for roofing business owners. We keep it super clean. We have amazing admins, and usually we don't see many people like, call people out in a nasty way. I mean, we call out scammers and we call out bad practices, but not in a nasty way. So my friend, guy who lost to me 4 times in arm wrestling, he beat me twice, but it's 4-2. So this guy comes in,
I saw
and
one of those videos. He looked like he might have been cheating.
Out of nowhere, one time, he just comes in and try to roast this guy. And usually, I don't even know who approved it, but then by the end of the day, the post has 300 comments. The best advice I can give you, if someone is hating on you online, is let your audience, let your fans defend you. And this is exactly what Matt did. And something just happened, like people were coming in and start roasting chat, and the more chat was trying to roast Matt, the more backlash he was getting. And then it was 300 comments, and people were actually DMing me all night, like, hey, are you gonna delete that post? Is that what this group is all about? And I'm reading the comments. That's don't see anything like super negative. I don't see like them fighting like kids. Like usually, roofers, when they get together, there's disrespect. They start calling each other names, like a lot of stuff. Well, Matt took a position where it was like, you know what, I'm going to have fun with it. This is marketing that's working for me right now. Chad is my marketing director. Amazing approach. Many people start commenting, this is the, this is the pause that will go to Hall of Fame of Roofing Insights private group. I enjoyed reading. It was one time where I said, you know what, I'm not going to delete it. It's too funny. It's too cool, and this actually teaches us a story that even if someone, and here's my message to this audience. I tell people all the time, someone cannot ruin your reputation. Your reputation cannot be ruined from outside. We're so worried what other people will talk about us, say about us. You are, and only you and your actions can ruin your reputation. It's what you do. You can go in and trash me, start a campaign against me, and it will not go far. Like Chet did not accomplish much against Matt, and because of the audience, it doesn't matter what I think, it doesn't matter what Chet thinks, it matters what the audience think. And if you have a good name, like, do not be afraid of that someone sooner or later, and the more you go online, the more of this you will do, the more haters you're gonna get. I mean, listen to this.
Yeah.
3 years ago, I did this campaign. I decided to give my own money to recognize. I did it for 4 years total. But the first year, I did a fittest roofer competition, and I said I will send money, and pretty much you take a bundle of shingle, you lift it above your head 100 times, 4 times, and I said whoever will win this, I will send $2,000 for the first place, $800 for the second place, and $400 for the third place. I put cash. And I did it, and for 2 months, people were doing it. You will not believe how much hate I was getting from it. Some people were hating, saying, listen, I got messages, and in public forums, people were saying that you're doing it for selfish reasons as a tax write-off. I'm like, really? For $2,000, I can take my team in a nice restaurant and get drunk, and that would be also write-off.
You sure would?
You know what I mean? What do I get to benefit? Like sending, as a matter of fact, I remember I sent a guy $800 in Canada. He took a second place, and he posted like, I can't believe it. You actually did it. So even when you have the best intentions, but you're doing something in the public eye, people will hate on you in the stupidest way possible. It's just the name of the game. But how you react matters. And I always say, you know what? People who know me closely, they will know. Even right now, I teach other contractors how to do business, and people like, or another guru, wherever. He was in my business today. That atmosphere is amazing. We have over 500 companies coming to me, but yet every single time you throw something about that you have online course, people like, oh, another guy or another. You're gonna get that hate. Why? Because there's a lot of people who took advantage of others by selling stupid courses. Anyway, sorry, just have to let.
Do you think most of those negative comments come from a place of jealousy?
Jealousy. I mean, this is the culture. Like we create as keyboard warriors who people are insecure. They're bored. They're not happy with themselves. You don't know. You never know what's happening on other side of the screen. I don't think happy person who lives good life, have good kids, have time for hate. It's someone who's don't know what movie to watch on Netflix tonight. He will go in, scroll. Screw this guy. That's what's happening because it's easy to hate, and they live miserable lives. I don't know why people do it. Happy people don't hate on other people.
It is weird.
It is weird. Let's read some comments.
It's got to be an evolutionary trait for some reason, right?
True. I mean, and we have a lot of it. And what's funny is, like last week, I actually called out two people who were like, if you call me out publicly, hate me publicly, please. But I'm gonna invite you to my studio, and you better show up. It's show up or shut up. If you are brave enough to speak out loud, like for example, Chad, if you have a problem with this guy, how about you do an interview with him? How about you come to his studio? Like if you have a problem with me, I'm gonna give you the mic, and we're gonna go in front of the audience, and let's argue, let's talk, let's get down to it. What's the problem? I'm not gonna be a keyboard warrior with you. So last week, two people came to my post and they started roasting me for covering one story, one-sided. I'm like, you know what? If you have other side of the story, how about you come? He's like, I work for this company. I can't do that. Well, shut up then. I'll do private lunch. What's the private lunch gonna do? You commenting nasty comments that I have bad intention of covering your story. You claim to know the other side of the story, but you would not come and share it. What does it tell me about you? You have nothing. You have nothing.
They're not being productive at all.
No.
What will it take you to come to Memphis? A lot of beer. It's not that far from me, actually.
Yeah, Memphis is right there, Georgia.
I don't mind coming out there. If you allow me to put a camera in your face and shoot some video while I'm doing it, yeah.
He came to Minneapolis. He can come to Memphis.
Right. This is how desperate I am. I'm coming.
Joshua Freeman. This is how can I call it? It's damage control trip. That's what this is. Damage control trip. Put a shirt on.
Yeah, I'm just doing damage control. All that negative commentary I got. Hey guys, thank you so much for sticking up for me. It was quite touching. I spent all night that night laughing with my family, skipping over the curse words so I could read it to my youngest child because she was enjoying it too. But for the most part, it was really touching. I got a little choked up there for a minute. It was an enormous outpouring. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Joshua, I have a question for you. My big question today is this. Are we in the claim apocalypse? If so, what does that mean for contractors and public adjusters respectfully?
I feel like claim apocalypse is the name of the next Avengers movie. Claim apocalypse. I don't know what you really mean. I suppose you mean, or claims getting tougher? Yeah, obviously. The policies are getting stricter. They're adding more words. When a policy used to be 15 pages long and now it's 47 pages, you know there's a problem. And then the laws are, for some states, they're very good, but for most states and even those good states, they're getting a little bit stricter against the policyholder advocates. So is there a claim apocalypse coming? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Javier is asking, I got another one. Is it okay to have homeowner obtain their policy forms and endorsements for their personal purpose to the ask the insurance? Where does it says then that in my policy purposes, and provide a copy to their contractor, but contractor does not speak any policy? Is that okay? So they want to get a policy.
All right. So in many states, I got to give disclaimers all the time just because there's insurance companies watching what I do these days. I'm not an attorney. You should seek the advice of an attorney in your state. But for most states, or at least some states, if you give advice to a policyholder on what to do, you're acting as a public adjuster. And I know that's shitty. But That's true. The new Florida House or Senate Bill 76 did that in Florida, for example. You cannot even give advice. So if this is an act of giving advice, then I cannot condone that for the states where that's illegal. If it isn't illegal, then it could be considered free speech for you to explain to a homeowner this is what you recommend them doing, as long as you give all the disclaimer that you should and say, I'm not an attorney, you should seek legal advice, get a public adjuster, whatever it might be. But if they're asking, where is this in my policy, you're assuming that the adjuster is actually arguing with policy language to begin with. Adjusters don't do that. They might give a denial letter, and you have to request one most of the time, and that's a good thing to do. If you get a denial for any reason, ask them for a denial letter, so they have to put in writing the specific language that they're using to deny the coverage. But if they're not actually giving a denial letter with policy language, then asking them, where does it say that in my policy, probably is going to fall on deaf ears. Now, if they're saying that the policy says this and they're just saying that it says that, then that's not a bad idea. But yeah, a policyholder can definitely do that. Just be careful on who's telling them to do it. Claim apocalypse. Extremely fitting for the time we are in now.
See, I don't know we're there yet.
Everybody always, it's always the apocalypse, right? Every generation believes that it's the end of the world in their generation. You know what I mean?
Look at that camera.
It's not the apocalypse. Okay, calm your tits.
I say this, it's all in your head. It's always all in your head. And here's, like, since we're talking about this, here's my 2 cents on competition. Competition is good. It makes you tougher. I think that our industry is saturated with the contractors. It's survival of the fittest at the end of the day, but do not be afraid of it. Marketers will ruin marketing platforms like Angels List, Home Advisor, stuff like that. It just have, like, they will ruin Facebook. Like 3-4 years ago, you could get a lot of business from Facebook. Not anymore. You have to work harder. People adopt it. People adopt fast. You have to evolve. Don't wrap your mind around something. Oh, times have changed. Yeah, maybe 5 years ago, State Farm claims were easier to settle. Maybe jobs were easier to sell. Maybe after the storm is easier to get 100 claims approved. It's not always like, just work hard. You doing. If it's hard for you, it's hard for your competition.
That's good. That's the reason I became a public adjuster.
Yeah, it's hard for everyone, and someone have to do it. Now, when more public adjusters coming in, more storm chasers coming in, more claims are open, of course, insurance adjusters, insurance companies will change the way they do business. They're not in the game to make it easier for us. They're not in the game to attract 5,000 more contractors. For me, it's a good game. If you're a hardworking individual, if you're willing to learn, you will rise to the top no matter what market brings. But I promise you this, it will get harder and harder, but you have to be tougher and tougher. But if you have this mentality that times have changed and it's so hard, you're going to get depressed, you're going to be out of business, and someone, that hungrier kid, will rise to the top, and you will be broke and maybe, I don't know, working in the grocery store, while someone will be wrecking millions because they figure out the game, and you were thinking that, okay, I got out of the game before it got too late. I see it all the time, and it's very sad.
You said hungry kid. Is that a function of you getting older and you're starting to already rage against the younger generation? Are you going to start calling people whippersnappers soon?
No, I always tell people, it's actually the phrase I use all the time. If you want to win in games, like, you have to be the hungry kid.
You got to know the rules of the game, though, to win.
True,
and the rules are changing, and that's true. And this is the claim apocalypse.
But if you are hungry, and you will do absolutely everything to get there, like, absolutely
100%. Be on top of the changes and roll with it and adapt.
So Conrad says that he's following Matt because of that pause. So chat, thank you so much. You added another follower.
You're my best marketer ever.
So Matt Doskin, how would RCV payout be affected if we see huge inflation between payment and build? Great question.
I'm actually making I made a video about this recently with Price is Right. That's a good question, is the reality. So the RCV amount, or let's say the policy limit is set to 500,000 for a home. But because of the increase in material costs, suddenly, if your house burned down and there was a total loss, it might cost 600,000 to rebuild, or $1 million just because of the cost of materials. The policy still has a limit. Now, there are additional coverages for those kinds of fluctuations and increases. Sometimes they'll add 25% on top of the policy. If you don't have those additional coverages, there's not much you can do. And the real shitty part, when you really start thinking about it, is if you have a co-insurance situation. If the policy says that they will only pay coverage if you have maybe 80% of the replacement cost value of the property in coverage, and it costs $1 million to replace now, and you have 500,000 in coverage where it normally would be, even if it was 50% value to coverage, they're only going to pay you half of the RCV amount that there was going to be to begin with. And they're always going to hit the policy limit. There's a lot of issues with this. It is something that is definitely bringing up some major concerns. And I know that there are attorneys dealing with some interesting cases on this, but honestly, I don't know what the real answer is, Matt. I think it's going to be very policy specific, very heavy on the semantics of the policy.
Bart is jealous of your beard. I during the interview earlier today, I asked Matt what percentage of his success goes to his beard. He said 25%.
25%.
25%.
I'm going to give it a raise next time.
Conrad says, "Bring the camera. I just order a keg."
Nice.
So it looks like you're going to Memphis.
I am a beer snob, though. I hope it's good beer.
So Javier says, "Agreed, settled." Facebook user is saying, probably someone who works
Also
for insurance company. Florida Senate Bill 1598 also defined public adjusting in Florida. I'm surprised everyone is overlooking it.
I don't think many people are really, well, there are people who are looking. Don't get me wrong, you're actually right about that. But it was kind of a sister bill almost to 76, and they work hand in hand with each other. What's cool about the House Bill 76 is that they are already deeming parts of it unconstitutional. I'm curious to see how they go about some of the other provisions in that once that case comes out the other end, but it's going to be a while.
Okay.
Tyler, that's the guy that made the shirt.
What's up, my shill homie?
Yeah.
By the way, I just want to thank you. It's my studio, so I'm giving shout out to my sponsors. So huge shout out to the sponsor of this video, Chat Sells, uniting people, building marketing campaigns, kicking out from Facebook groups for the last 5 years. Chat, you're the best in the game. Losing arm wrestling games at the bars.
What's his company name? Chat Sells Chat?
Chat Sells Contractors. He's actually becoming a public adjuster, I believe.
He is a public adjuster.
Yeah, he's a public adjuster, right? Yeah, so
he's a public adjuster and a contractor. As far as
Chet, I absolutely love you. If I'm giving you hard times, it comes from the place of love, from deep inside of my heart. So, just wanted to give shout out to the sponsor. Proof Roofing says, "What's up, Dmitry, Matthew, Joe, or Terry with Proof Roofing? Thank you both for valuable content you're producing. I'm constantly learning from you guys. Thank you."
You're welcome.
Disclaimer: the carrier's tightening up has not slowed me down a bit. Good to hear. It's all in your head.
Wow.
Bart says, "Can you cover how labor is not depreciated on an ACV policy, or so I hear?"
That's true. It's actual cash value of the material. So there's no labor involved. So there can't be any depreciation for labor. When you're talking about actual cash value, it's how much that material is currently worth in its current format just before the loss. So you take it's calculated by taking RCV amount minus depreciation and age. But that RCV amount does include labor, but that labor was the original labor when you're talking about ACV. This is how much it's worth now, having already been installed. Best way to describe that in a way that makes sense for that question anyway.
Anthony Hines asking, "How can we ensure consistency within our industry for claims resolution?"
What do you think? It's a good question.
there's so many players. I don't think you're going to get any consistency just because there's so many markets. Like United States is a huge company. Like what you can do in California, I mean, even like look at Home Depot, not available in California or Alaska. Like,
because it all creates cancer.
Exactly. So the problem with the insurance industry is because there's so many markets, and Alabama is completely different from Portland or Washington. So there's so many human nature will tell you, like, we will try always push the limits and get away with as much crap as we possibly can within the line. So if insurance carrier can get away with something in Alabama, you think they will not? Like, they will pay $500 a square in Portland because they have to, but if they can pay, and listen, at the end of the day, you would do the same thing. Like, honestly, and contractors do the same thing. I see contractors moving all around and playing one game here and completely different game other. Like, we all do that. We're all humans. We all adapt. So I don't think we can expect any consistency just because there's so many players, laws are different, case laws are different. Like, what you can get away. Like, Minnesota is a matching state. And if you're not a matching state, I feel bad for you because it's easier for me. Like, what kind of consistency we can talk about it when we live in different states with different, maybe talk to your governor and maybe move to another state. California and Texas, different states. It's just, there's no consistency in this market.
That's 100% accurate. That's really the reason. Everything is different from one state to the next. And every policy is different too. So there's not going to be any consistency there until the insurance industry can become consistent, but they can't from one state to the next because a lot of their laws revolve around other industry laws that already exist in those states. It's never really going to happen, though there are a lot of attempts to make the NAIC, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, trying to develop models. There's models for all of the insurance commissioners, and they can pull information from that, but none of them have adopted it 100%, and it's definitely never going to be all of them that do that anyway.
Looks like we found 75% of your success.
None of it is anything in between. Come on, guys, at least 10%.
It's just the looks.
At least 10. Jeez. My face is a shill for my hat and my beard.
Conrad says, have the adjuster update the pricing per exactimate? Probably for previous conversation.
Probably, yeah.
All right. World greatest roofer is asking, do you suggest that roofers continue to argue with field adjuster on site with how bad it's gotten? Do you suggest taking the fight to the desk adjuster instead? So field adjuster versus desk adjuster fight.
So field adjusters are less and less qualified or have less and less authority. It seems like they never seem to have the ability to say yes or no. They always have to go to a desk adjuster these days to get anything approved. So if that field adjuster doesn't have the authority to say yes to something, why are you arguing with them? What's the point? It's not going to get past them into their notes to the desk adjuster. You're just pissing them off, so it's less likely that it's going to get into their notes to the desk adjuster. I would recommend you put together a full packet of information and send it in. A public adjuster can send in a full proof of loss. Contractors can put together a full scope of work with explanations of how that's supposed to work in their bid, and they can explain that to the desk adjuster. Fighting someone that doesn't have authority is pointless.
So Anthony Hines elaborates a little bit. Consistencies based on how we present our cases to the carrier, and specifically how we train supplementers and public adjusters. See where you're going with it, and I like it. But the thing about, like, we should have consistency in training and education, 100%. And you should have a process that you follow. But unfortunately, listen, we would not need lawyers if everybody would follow the rules, right? Like, if everybody just by the law, but not every
We all hate lawyers, so why don't we just do that, right?
Exactly. Why would just teach people follow the? So the reason it's happening because not every case is like that. And I don't know. I don't think you can train like every just. There's also huge human factor. Like if I train you how to talk to adjuster, I mean it will work on the half of the adjuster, and then that one adjuster will be in a bad mood, and he's going to give you objections you've never heard before, and it also throws your training manual out of the window. You're like, it always worked, and now it doesn't, and so like you have to adapt to the market. You have to be human first. Like we want a training manuals, but you have to do what's right, and what's right is not
I
always
like
easy.
that. You have to be human first. These people that we're fighting with, they're humans too. They're doing their
100%.
job. They're supporting their family. They're doing the best they can most of the time. And most of the time they actually want to help, and they think that they are, and they think that you're greedy, and that's just because of the way that they're being taught. So if you're getting different information, you're going to have a different output in your outlook. There are ways to improve the industry educationally. I think this might have been a softball for me, to be honest, because we've just started the National Claims Institute. And the National Claims Institute is there to teach every aspect of first-party property claims to everybody that's involved in first-party property claims. And we will, by the end of this year, have full public adjuster courses. John Dye has a great supplementer course if you guys want to go through one that's really good. John Dye does that. You know John Dye, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys do a supplement course or something too? I don't think you do.
No, we don't.
I didn't want to step on your toes or something.
I'm not an expert in that field, and
Okay.
I don't even like public adjusters, to be
No,
honest.
I know. I could tell.
This is not my cup of tea. I can teach you others. I can teach you business sides.
Your
but
team clearly doesn't like public adjusters. that
we're
very
in Minnesota.
attractive guy, Chris.
We are spoiled here. We're absolutely spoiled. We live in money-making Minnesota. What do you expect? It's not the greatest for you, my friend, for public adjusters.
Well, I mean, one day.
One day.
What we'll do is we'll just get with the insurance companies and tell them how to combat contractors, and we'll do that consistently so that they know how to make your lives living hell. So you have to get us involved.
Absolutely. Anthony Hines says, "Thank you. The human element can be what we rely on of all of this. Let's make that change." Well, unfortunately, I don't agree. I think it's all about human element, and here's the reason why. You can take, like, we have a lot of go-getters, and we have a lot of people who knows how to sell. They come, and I think that's actually the problem. The hustlers, like, hustle on. Like when you take entrepreneurs and you plug them in the insurance restoration industry, they think it's black and white. They think that you can just close deals, right? But settling insurance claim, it's not the same as selling Mercedes-Benz on a lot. You're not a car seller. Like you don't have, it's different products. It's more like becoming a good lawyer, good advocate, good. I mean, it's different set of skills altogether. You
Definitely.
have to be human first. You have to be good with people. It's more, I mean, you will have days when you're going to be a pastor and you'll be praying with your people because, I just came from Chicago and they have tornado. And one of the business owners, he told me, he's actually a public adjuster. He said, he's never seen anything like that in his life. Actually, if you watch our channel on Roofing Insights from last week, you can see the brick walls came down. Like I guess wind was so big and they were collapsing, mechanical damage, right? So the walls, we did content about it. And he said, Dmitry, I was crying with the people. He's like, I'm trying to charge enough money to rebuild it. But we're like, you're talking about bricks falling off the walls. You have to match the brick. You have to rebuild it. You're talking about masonry. He's like, we're not framers. He said his framer gave him a bid for $50,000. He's like, we can't afford it. The claim will never pay for it. And the framer was a little bit maybe greedier because of lumber prices, because of demand. So he's like, we framed it ourselves for $20,000, and we're not a framing company, but we're a GC, and he put it too. So sometimes you will be that pastor who will cry with the victim of tornado or hurricane, wherever. Sometimes you will be a lawyer. Well, we're not lawyers, but you will be given legal advice just because someone have to. You will be reading like law maybe with a client and say, what else can we do? Because you lost everything. So you cannot train for this stuff. This is not your typical sales job, or it's typical manual like how to sell a burger at McDonald's. This is complex job.
I think it all starts with proper communication. And in order to really communicate with somebody else and understand their plight, you really have to have some empathy with what they're going through and understand their motivations. So even if you're dealing in that kind of situation and crying with your clients, obviously there's empathy there. But if you also have empathy for the adjuster that you're arguing with and understand what it is that they want, you can understand that you can keep fighting with him, or you can help him provide his manager what's needed to actually get it approved and find ways to work together. But that all starts with a human element. Absolutely.
100%.
I agree with you.
Proof Roofing says, do you recommend lump sum bids or sending work scopes straight from Xactimate with line item pricing? Does it make a difference in how they receive it?
Well, for a public adjuster, lump sum bid doesn't matter that much. We're arguing most of the time for the just the bid as a whole, as a settlement. So especially on large loss, we'll be saying that the policy states they'll pay for the reasonable and necessary costs incurred or spent or something along those lines. And here is the estimate for the reasonable and necessary costs incurred or spent. If it is broken down using Xactimate with individual stuff, and you charge a different amount than what Xactimate normally charges on their averages, because that's all it really is. It's just averages. You can manipulate the program. It's designed that way on purpose. But if you do that, you invite the carrier to be a little bit more, they tend to feel like it's fishy. So honestly, I kind of like the lump sum, at least for large loss. If we're doing a lot of small loss claims, individual line item arguments tend to be a little bit more prominent in the smaller claims, and that's okay. So honestly, I don't really think it matters for a public adjuster perspective, but this lump sum thing is something that's really become a big deal these days. Did you ever do that when you were a roofer?
Maybe one or two cases.
Do you know if they're doing that now over there?
Doubt it. It's Xactimate. Chris is Xactimate guy. It's Xactimate. He knows Xactimate. He knows how to supplement. He knows how to fight it. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
I mean, from a just basic standpoint, the whole point of providing an estimate is to say this is how much we charge, period. And not to say this is the line items that we're going to charge you for. This is how much it costs to do the whole job. I think lump sum meets the intention or the spirit of the law a little bit more than individual line item arguments do.
I think it also goes with the history, how you've been doing business. So if you trained for years to do it other way, to estimate your work, like I know Florida contractors who have Excel spreadsheet and they know all the line items, and that's how you do it. Like, submit that to insurance company. Or if you're commercial contractor and you have different software, how you bid on your jobs, like material, labor, cost, whatever, I think it's fine. But a lot of restoration contractors, they already have people who train in Xactimate. That's what they used to. Like, Chris, who works for me, he used to that. Like, to retrain him to do something else would actually be a hassle for me. I'm like, what? And we're in Minnesota, so Xactimate pays decent. So I would say if you find that Xactimate does not pay enough for you to be profitable, like I know few markets that it's opposites. So in few markets, Xactimate pays above going rate. So let's say you're in North Carolina and Xactimate gives you $450 and going rate is $350. Good for you. Like, why would you change it? Like, that's your average if you're a retail price. But I also know a few areas in the country where it's opposite, where Xactimate actually $100 less than most contractors charge. So why would you accept that? Like, build your estimates in QuickBooks, submit that to insurance company, argue that that's your cost, and you have to have at least 30-40% gross profit margins, 10% net. Otherwise, you're going to be out of business in a couple of years. I mean, they want you to be out of business, but look at your numbers and what's good for you. For us, Xactimate was fine. But
I think for most contractors, Xactimate is. To expand on that real quick, though, the new Florida Senate bill does require you to break down the individual line item costs on your bid, and you are required to actually submit that. but most states don't have that same requirement. Just read up on your state's laws before you apply anything we're saying.
Adam Hines saying supplementation companies can be the best administrative support for trained public adjuster. Do you agree?
I was just talking to your guy, Chris, about that. You know, supplement companies, when they make that switch to becoming public adjusters, a lot of times they'll become a servicing public adjuster. There are a lot of PAs out there, a lot of PAs that are really just salesmen. And they don't have anyone that's really servicing their claims well. There are supplement companies that actually do very well as public adjusters once they get their license to become a servicing public adjuster, to let those marketing sales PAs send them claims, and the PA that is marketing and sales, they're always looking for good servicing partners. So yeah, there's definitely a market for that. I think that it's at least a good baseline to have information for.
Anthony Hines, again, he's
all over the place.
top man. Yeah, you should send him
He's a
something
top
like
fan.
it. Yep, definitely. Yeah, I don't see the badge yet. Expanding on the human element, automating the submission and follow-up process and claims resolution has already been tested and it works. However, the need for public adjusters is more important now than ever. Josh was right about the changes. We can correct the change, but it's going to take the industry leaders coming together.
I mean, yes. The whole reason we've established the National Claims Institute is for that reason. There is a lot of changes. Every policy is very different from one another now. You can't make assumptions on what coverage exists from one policy to the next. I had a policy recently that didn't say anywhere on the deck page that the roof was ACV only, but if you actually went through the actual policy, it did say in the policy language, buried into it, that roof surfaces were ACV only. And it wasn't on the deck page. So you can't make assumptions. And I made assumptions on that one, and I learned my lesson again. But I'm just saying they're so different from one to the next. You have to stay ahead of the curve. The curve seems to be a little bit tighter than usual. So there definitely needs to be a little bit more education. There are good public adjuster courses that are available right now, but there will be more with National Claims Institute later this year.
I want to elaborate on the last sentence here. We can correct the change, but it's going to take industry leaders coming together. I want you to think about something. Think about what's happening in our industry. I'm talking about National Roofing Contractor Association. I'm talking about insurance institutes that are in place. I'm talking about all this bureaucracies that are in place. They've been there for decades. They're big. They're powerful. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Why do we elect our presidents only for 4 years, 8 years? So you're absolutely right. We have to get together, but we also have to challenge them, because what's happening now at this, I have this in my industry. I'm a YouTuber and I call out manufacturers for their practices. I'm getting cease and desist letters from billion-dollar companies who don't like the message we send. But if you want to change, you don't rely on leaders. Here's why. And I've seen it time and time again. Think about who are the leaders in the roofing industry, who are the leaders in the insurance industry, who are real leaders right now. You're talking about, why don't we don't elect presidents for more than 8 years? Because they're going to go corrupt. That's what's happening in Russia and most countries who have the same president for 30 years. They're going to grow around them. So we have people who've been in the same chairs for 20, 30 years. What took place is corruption took place. They're super comfortable with each other. There's so many deals behind closed doors, conspiracy theories behind Exactimate, Eagleview, you name it, it's there, right? Politicians, all these laws are passing. Why they're passing? Because someone, if you study, State Farm, Chicago case, when they were I think they were fined $1 billion because they were trying to actually elect their governor, in Chicago, 20 years ago. Things like that's happening for a reason, because when you're in power for 20 years and you think you're so big and powerful, it could be hey, for $20 million, for $30 million, can I pass one more thing? Can I do one more thing? Now, what we can do, we can challenge that. with the internet by exposing one by one. Is you don't leaders don't come together if they've been there for 20 years. Those leaders are too soft and too comfortable to change anything. They're good for themselves. They are good, probably for 2 generations. They are set. It's us, hungry kids, who needs to go out and do what's right and challenge the bullshit, call it out, and change the whole thing. Because you can't just take those policy that they wrote and think that they're gonna revert it. They're not. We need some kind of almost revolution, because leaders will not do crap. They are too warm. They're too comfortable. They've been sitting there for too long. It's us who can make the change.
I feel like you probably have a lot more expertise in that particular conversation than almost any comfortable natural born American. That's very interesting. So how long have you been doing this? More than 8 years?
Well, a roofing business, I've been contracting for 10 years. I've been a roofing contractor for 7 years.
So
I've been doing
insights.
roofing insights 5 years. But what happened is I got sued early on in 2017. Like pretty much I got sued on my very first video. How about that? I did a video. I compared the products. And
that was the GAF video?
I can't comment, man. I cannot comment. So I got sued almost right away. And then I pissed a lot of people because, I always was honest to myself. I said, I will never filter anything. If I see the bullshit, I'm going to call it out. And unfortunately, I have a finance company sending me cease and desist letters. I pissed a lot of corporations because I never cared. Bring it on. I'll say it how it is. And if you're willing to change, if you have a good message, like I'll give you an example. What's happening right now? Two biggest corporations, players, Beacon Supply and ABC Supply. I'm dealing with so much hypocrisy, like with the sales reps, and what I hate the most about it is they bring Christianity to it. They're like one person, actually really big in Israel. He actually told me, like, I'm a good person. I'm a Bible believing Christian. I'm raising 3 Christian daughters. You know why he was saying that to me? Because I challenged him for the interview, and he said, I'm not going to do the interview because, you know why? Because he's afraid I'm going to ask him a not comfortable question for him. And I said, listen, because people that I called out is his biggest clients. And he pretty much says, well, I know you don't have a good relationship with them. So he did not do the interview. And then he brings Christianity. And I'm like, you know what? You're fake. You're worm. You've been doing it for 3 decades. I'm going to call you out for the hypocrite that you are. You are not the leader in the industry. You're not doing good to anyone but yourself. If you're afraid to sit in a chair and talk about roofing industry, do not freaking call yourself as a leader. You're not leader. And please never ever bring you God in the conversation about your character. If you have to bring, like, listen, if you get pulled over by a police officer and getting a ticket, don't tell them you're a pastor and you're spitting to church. That's the last thing you want to say. But that's exactly what's happening. This guy is literally like, are you questioning my character? Ask everybody. Everybody knows how good I am. How good you are? You would not sit in the chair, talk about industry. You're Christian and you're afraid of tough question. What kind of tough question, Christian? True God, Jesus believer Christian can't be afraid of. No, your sellout, money blinded you. You do well to yourself. And I do with the 2 of them right now. One works for ABC Supply, another one works for Beacon. They would not come on camera. They know their companies are in the wrong. They don't want to have a conversation, but they call themselves as a leaders of the industry. And I'm tired of this bullshit. So if you have to bring God to conversation about your character, I don't want to be part of your religion. And we will have that conversation with you or without you. Thank you, YouTube. Thank Google. And thank you to whoever invented the internet.
It's almost like when someone says to you, I'm going to be honest with you for a minute. And you just know what's about to come out of their mouth is complete bullshit.
Probably.
My worst customer ever was a minister.
Mm-hmm.
And she just wanted to keep the money.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. And
her church caught on fire when the contractor tried to remove the steeple because they wouldn't let the contractor inside to find out how the steeple was actually attached through this thing. So he used a grinder and a spark got off, and her church caught on fire because of her claim. I don't know if that means anything, but it was funny.
Well, my company knows we have one guy working for us. He was preaching to us. He was always like pretty much never drink, never smoke, whatever. Well, he stole $50,000 from the claim. He was on the board of the church, and the church got approved for $380,000 through appraisal process. He was involved in it for 2 years. I have to testify in court. He got a felony. He cannot buy a firearm today, and I have to turn him into the police. I have 2 judgments against the guy. The guy is my father's age. Preaching to me, preaching to my team, like, praying on Saturdays because he was Adventist, whatever. And then when it all started unfolding, and later he has actually quit with another sales rep, my receptionist company was like, Dmitry, I can't do it to you. Those 2 guys are starting their business while working for you, stealing my leads, stealing my jobs. And I started looking at the claims. He stole $50,000 from his church. And we were supposed to do that church. He acted as a general, so he works for me. He ran $30K from my company through my company. I did not get 1 penny from that claim. And when I look at it, it's like, and I decided to call pastor. It's like, when are you going to do the roof? It's like, Dmitry, job was done 6 months ago. I'm like, we need to talk. So I came in, and this guy was funneling money through my company, he pretty much was coming to church and say, hey, write a check to this guy for $12,000. He's a roof expert. They would write a check. He would give his friend $12K. Guy would give him back $10K, gives $2,000. And meanwhile, he's my sales rep working for me. I'm inspecting the job. I'm invested. It was like, that's the Christianity for it. So the thing is, like, if you have to bring church that you're going to, God, when we question your character, you probably don't have much of the character. I'm telling you, I'm a religious person, but I'm not gonna bring it like business as business. People will judge you by what you do at workplace, not by what church you go on Sunday.
Ethics shouldn't matter whether you're religious or not. So
I think we need to start wrapping up.
Yeah, we do. This is the last question.
Policyholders are our best advocate to help us to make correct changes. However, it will take industry resources to provide the information to policyholders. We do not have enough visibility to the public, period. This is going to change very soon. We actually have more visibility than you think.
That wasn't a question. Did we get this guy? We get this guy, and we'll call this the last. There's a question. All right. How can we address material shortage and delivery times with insurance companies to fix damage in a timely manner? I have a leaking building but can't get materials to fix. How responsible is insurance company helping us? I've actually been doing some research on this particular issue because this is my next video that I'm shooting. Material shortage is a problem. The policies require you to make repairs within a certain amount of time. But if you can't get materials to make those repairs, there's a term in the contract world called impossibility. Now, I'm giving you legal stuff, but I'm not an attorney, so seek the help of an attorney or ask them if I'm right or not. If it is impossible for you to perform the actions required of the contract, then the actions required of that contract that are impossible are no longer required. So if you can't meet those conditions because of an impossibility that is outside of your responsibility, it's nothing to do with you, it's not your own negligence causing it, that impossibility then negates the requirement of the policy. Now, if in practice, if you've got material shortages, you need to be in contact with the insurance carrier and let them know that it's taking a long time. And if you're going to pass some policy deadlines, you should ask the carrier to toll that amount of time because you cannot get the materials. It's impossible. So if you're about to hit a statute of limitations or a suit limitation period, for example, you can either file suit just to have it on record and wait, or you could ask the carrier to toll the amount of time while you're waiting on those materials so that that amount of time doesn't eat into that suit limitation period that you have. If the carrier doesn't agree to do that, then they're not really acting favorably, maybe not even in good faith. But the impossibility tenet of contract law will apply if you end up having to sue.
Well, I think that was good, Ant. Thanks for having
Cool.
me.
Thank you. I feel like I was on your show
No, it was all you.
twice.
Twice.
Yeah, I mean, this was the Dmitry Talks About Bullshit show. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next week. I don't remember who my next guest is because I'm a poor